Admitted, The Strange Tale of Depsey the Rabbit. Chapter 39, Aftermath and Restoration. The studio clock read 5:47 a.m., but time had lost all meaning hours ago. Willie slumped over his drawing desk, every muscle in his body screaming protest. His right hand cramped from the most intense drawing session of his 40-year career. Fingers still curled around a pencil that had become an extension of his will. Eraser dust coated everything. His sleeves, the desk surface, the character sheets that had been battlegrounds between love and corruption. The projector behind him was nothing but twisted metal and shattered glass. Sparks occasionally popping from circuits that should have been dead beyond resurrection. Smoke still rose from components that had been compressed into impossible shapes by cosmic tentacles. The acrid smell of burned electronics mixing with the coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Sarah would have stayed up with me, he thought, staring at his trembling hands. She always did when I had deadline crunches. The memory hit like a physical blow. Those endless nights in the cancer ward when she was too sick from chemo to sleep, watching him sketch by the glow of medical equipment. "Pour your heart into it, Willie," she'd whispered during one of their last conversations. "That's what makes it real." He'd poured everything tonight. Every ounce of love, every memory of her voice encouraging his work, every promise he'd made at her bedside to keep creating joy in a world that had taken her away. His characters, their artistic children, had been under attack, and he'd fought with the only weapons he had, pencil, eraser, and the kind of love that grows stronger under pressure rather than breaking. Behind him, something impossible happened. Spark. A single electrical surge somehow found its way through the mangled projector, through circuits that had been twisted into abstract sculptures, through glass that had been ground to powder. The destroyed screen flickered, not with the steady glow of proper electronics, but with the erratic pulse of something that absolutely should not be working. "What?" Willie turned in his chair, his exhausted body protesting the movement. Light. Impossible, crackling, unstable light that showed two familiar faces peering through dimensional static. "Willie!" Chuck's voice came through speakers that had been reduced to scrap metal, distorted but unmistakably relieved. "You did it! The connection's back!" Depsey's face appeared beside Chuck's, his red bow tie perfectly positioned, his expression carrying the innocent wonder that Willie had originally drawn into those features. "We thought we'd lost you forever when the screen went dark, but it was the third figure stepping into the unstable light that made Willie's breath catch. Lucy. Every detail perfect. Her porcelain surface gleamed with the exact warmth he'd envisioned during those painstaking hours of restoration. The delicate crown on her head caught light that seemed to come from within, each carefully drawn curve reflecting the love that had gone into creating her. Her rosy cheeks held the precise shade of confidence he'd always intended, not the forced brightness of performance, but the genuine glow of someone who knew her own worth. "I remember falling," she said, her voice carrying a wisdom that hadn't been there before. "I remember choosing to save you both, even though I was terrified. But I'm here. I'm myself again." "Lucy!" Chuck's joy exploded across the dimensional barrier. "You're back! You're really back!" Willie stared at the impossible reunion, seeing Sarah in Lucy's newfound confidence. His wife had faced cancer with that same brave certainty, choosing hope over fear right until the end. "Just like Sarah always said," he whispered, his voice hoarse from the night's ordeal. "Pour your heart into it. That's what makes it real." The camera perspective seemed to pull back through the projector light, revealing the cartoon world in the aftermath of cosmic battle. What Willie saw made his chest tighten with protective fury and sorrow. Their world bore scars like a veteran returning from war. Dimensional tears marred the familiar landscape, jagged wounds in reality, where the fleeing entities had clawed their way out of existence. Through one gash in the sky, upward falling snow drifted in impossible directions, each flake glowing with alien light. Another tier near the main street leaked the sound of cosmic wind that made everyone's ears ache, a frequency that cartoon physics had never been designed to handle. The cheerful buildings that had housed innocent adventures now sported impossible angles where tentacles had raked through brick and mortar. The bakery leaned at a slant that hurt to look at directly. The library's windows showed rooms that were somehow larger inside than the building's exterior could contain. Main Street curved around a wound in space-time that made everyone dizzy when they tried to walk past it. "Our world looks like cosmic Swiss cheese," Chuck said, but his optimism carried genuine strength now instead of manic desperation. His yellow surface gleamed with the authentic brightness Willie had always intended. Lucy examined a reality tear with scientific curiosity rather than self-doubt. "We can't just leave these open. Strange weather's already coming through some of them." Indeed, one-dimensional wound was dripping what appeared to be liquid starlight, pooling in cartoon puddles that reflected impossible constellations. Depsey bounced between his friends with restored innocence, his yellow shoes bright with joy rather than guilty performance. "Maybe the holes will make interesting windows. We could put up little signs, caution, interdimensional breach with cheerful cartoon lettering." Watching them navigate their wounded world with characteristic cartoon optimism made something break loose in Willie's chest. "I almost lost you," he said, his voice cracking with exhaustion and relief. "Like I lost her. I couldn't let that happen again." The connection flickered, static increasing as whatever impossible force was maintaining the bridge began to fail. All three characters moved closer to their end of the light, sensing the conversation was drawing to a close. "We understand now," Lucy said, her porcelain features glowing with gratitude. "We know why we were created. Not to be perfect, not to never face difficulty, but to choose love even when we're terrified." "You fought for us when we couldn't fight for ourselves," Chuck added, his bowler hat tilted at exactly the right jaunty angle. "You spent all night making sure we could be who you originally made us to be." Depsey nodded solemnly, his buck teeth catching the fading light. "We'll be what you created, not what they tried to make us. We promise." Willie held up his character sheets with shaking hands, every line perfect after hours of painstaking restoration. "I worked this hard because you deserved to be yourselves. Every detail mattered. Every line was important." His voice grew stronger despite his exhaustion. "Some things are worth fighting all night for." The projector's impossible light began to dim, reality reasserting itself as cosmic interference faded. They all knew this was goodbye, not just temporary separation, but permanent farewell across dimensional barriers that had been sealed by their victory. "Be happy," Willie said, his voice carrying all the love of a creator for his artistic children. "But be careful. Evil is patient. It will try again, somewhere else, with someone else's work." "We'll remember," Lucy promised, her crown gleaming one last time in the dying light. "We'll be vigilant, and we'll be ourselves." "Thank you," Chuck said simply, "for everything." The final image burned itself into Willie's memory. Three friends standing together in their wounded world, not unmarked by their ordeal, but stronger for having faced it. Lucy's confidence, Chuck's authentic optimism, Depsey's genuine innocence, all restored, all real, all exactly what he'd intended when he'd first put pencil to paper. The screen went dark. The studio fell silent except for the occasional pop and crackle of cooling metal. Willie sat alone with his restored sketches, his empty coffee cup, and the ghost of Sarah's voice whispering approval from memory. His hands still shook from hours of precise work. His back ached from hunching over the drawing desk. His eyes burned from straining to see every tiny detail in lamplight that had somehow never seemed bright enough. But looking at the character sheets spread before him, every tentacle mark erased, every corruption removed, every detail exactly as he'd originally envisioned, he felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's funeral. Peace. She would be proud, he said to the empty studio, carefully placing the restored sketches in protective sleeves. Some things are worth fighting all night for. Outside his window, the real world was waking up. Coffee shops opening, early commuters beginning their routines, children getting ready for school, normal people living normal lives, unaware that cosmic horror had been defeated by one exhausted animator who refused to let his work be corrupted. Willie turned off his desk lamp and headed for bed, knowing he'd sleep the deep sleep of someone who had given everything and won. His characters were safe. His artistic children were themselves again. Evil was patient, and it would try again. But love was patient too, and there would always be creators willing to fight all night to protect what they'd made with hope and joy, and the kind of dedication that transcends the merely human. In the cartoon world beyond dimensional barriers, three friends looked at their scarred but healing community and began planning how to help their neighbors navigate a reality punctured by impossible holes. They had work to do, but they would do it as themselves, exactly as they'd been created to be.